What's up, everybody? Wanted to give you guys a few updates before we get into this podcast episode with Amanda. We have some next gen updates. There's some amazing progress being made. Some features I want to pass along from Megan and team. So there's a new feature in there where you select the defect comments. The selected defect comments now move to the top of the list of comments once the item is navigated out of. So this maintains the order when they move. So this is only on mobile now. It's coming to the web soon, but this is a big happiness feature that I've heard a lot of inspectors say changes the game for them. Another one is bulk selection in the templates. So it's like bulk selecting comments to move, duplicate, some template magic stuff. I've heard a few comments that said this is saving them hours already, a week in terms of editing the template. So that's really cool. And then now you can report new defects on re-inspections with NextGen. So this has been in the making for a while now. So this is for you, those of you that do lots of re-inspects, this is pretty big. Previously, it was only defects copied from the previous report, which ultimately isn't that helpful because you're ideally, seeing something new or comparing the defect on the re-inspect. So some other notes from NextGen too to update you guys on. 99.8% crash free on the latest version. So a lot of you, if you tried it months ago, 6 months ago, drastically different experience now. So I encourage everyone to check that out. About 5,000 inspections a month are being completed on NextGen. So that's good validation there. Lots of happy inspectors using it. It's faster for sure, supports more of the style of reporting I like, heavy on photos and videos. That's a quote from an inspector. Another quote, constant upgrades are making the app better and better. It's become faster. Next quote, I feel like it saves me time, loads fast, and auto sync is amazing. Next Gen app has many small fixes, dragging photos, multiple apps working on the same report. Tons of little new stuff, much more efficient. So lots of great work has been done on this behind the scenes. A lot of times you guys don't hear or see a lot of the little fixes that are happening week after week, not only on next gen, but on the core app. Megan's getting better, and we've talked a lot about promoting these little happiness features like bulk editing in the template, like floating the comments to the top. Lots of cool little things that I think have been asked for a while, but I think ultimately lead to a better experience on the core app that everyone can use and enjoy. So some good updates there. So to this conversation with Amanda, she's a joy to talk with. I've known her for years. We've exchanged emails for years. I think I initially sent her a sales email to try to get her on Spectora years ago. Again, another female in this industry, and we don't have enough of them for sure, but she's been great, and she talks about training. We talk about the interest rate environment because this was back over the summer. So remember, this is before what we know now about the impact of interest rates. She talks about her truck, Flir cameras. She takes a live call from an agent in the pod, so that's a fun little treat where you see how she interacts with agents. So that's never happened before. And then we just do some fun brainstorming on how we can improve the software, how she can kind of grow her company, where she wants to take it. So hope you enjoy this one. It's another good one. And again, I'm getting caught up publishing a ton of episodes. We're now into December, and everyone's feeling kind of the impact of higher interest rates, a slowing environment. So again, I encourage everyone to keep reaching out to your network, your community, the Spectora user group, right into our team for anyone that is thinking about how to navigate this winter and kind of this storm, whether that be keeping in touch with agents. We've got a couple products in beta, Spectora Local and our mass emailing tool, all designed to help you guys stay top of mind with agents, get more reviews, increase your presence digitally. All things worth thinking about in terms of coming into 2023 with it being a challenging environment. But I think there's ways to get through this and stay top of mind with agents, because this will turn. As of this taping, interest rates have floated back down to just north of 6% on the 30-year fix, which I think is a positive sign that they didn't keep running away above 7%. So all right, enjoy the episode, y'all. Well, thank you first of all for the reschedule. My schedule goes into chaos every month or two, and then I got to start blocking off time specifically for the pod because it gets just overrun sometimes when I let other people schedule on my calendar.
Do you have a weird cyclical schedule?
more of just flurries of the team needing me and certain types of meetings, and like, say, end of quarter, it all goes to crap sometimes. So it's not like your guys is necessarily where it's like, but similar.
You run on a different school, yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. Long overdue. We've exchanged emails going back, I think, years, over the website. Like, I think I did a website review at one point. We talked about the site.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good memory.
Yeah, you tried to link me up with
Yeah.
The name eludes me, but we can chat
Nita
about
Davidson.
Yep, we can chat about Nita a bit too. Really cool stuff. So we can cover it all. But I'm mostly just curious what's up with you lately in terms of current market environment, the business. I refreshed the website. Looks like you got yourself a nice little team now.
I did. Yes, I did.
What's that like?
It's funny. My wife yells at me. She says, babe, you were so happy to not have employees when you started this business. But I mean, there's too much possibility in here, and I couldn't just leave it on the table. I just didn't feel okay leaving that many inspections that I could not satisfy on the table.
Saying no, right?
And there's so many women, especially in this city, that can do this job, but that might not be able to feel easy enough doing it on their own. So being able to give them a platform to be able to step into it, I mean, I couldn't say no to it. I didn't want to say no to it.
Was the vision and plan kind of always to stay solo and do that?
It was a nice break. Up until now, I've been in food service businesses. I've owned wholesale baking companies, retail, farmers, like I've done so many different functions and forms of food service, and that includes a lot of staff. So having, goodness, what was it? 9 months of only having to pay myself was really nice.
Beautiful, I bet. Yeah.
And no phone calls and no questions, and like I could address everything. And for me, like getting started, that was essential to be able to just get my feet.
Let's take a trip down memory lane and talk through the history of the food service world. So how did you even get into all that? And because that's not a typical path, I will tell you, in our business.
No,
but take us through the history here of kind of how you're at where you're at.
So way back, my dad was a contractor. He was a general contractor. He was a great builder, but a terrible businessman. Just terrible. Yeah.
Really common for
yeah, absolutely. Especially for people who are working the thing that they love. Like they love the thing, they don't necessarily address the business part. Right. So I grew up in, framed houses. Like my job as a kid was I would go through these houses after the electricians had been through, and my job was to pick up all the knockouts. And to this day, when I see a metal knockout on the floor, I'm like, oh, it's a quarter. It's not a quarter. Like my mind knows it's not a quarter, but my childhood brain, it thinks it's a quarter still. So like I grew up in the field. He went bankrupt. My parents divorced. He moved away, so that stopped when I was like 10. Mm-hmm. Then high school, I was, after school jobs, I jumped on with a deli. And the deli was overstaffed in the front and understaffed in the back one day. So they told me to go back and to help the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And since I was stuck at that point, and till I was 42, I was stuck in food service.
Ooh, yeah, that's a long career in food services.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. It was very long.
But I'm guessing you gained some specialties though, and gained some areas of expertise kind of in the back to where you were like, you know what, let's keep doing this.
Well, the truth of food service is that if you own or run any of them, you better be prepared to do minor plumbing, minor electrical, a decent amount of repairs, or you're going to be paying for those. And it's expensive to hire anyone out to do it. Like minor appliance repair, all of it. Right. You just you either do it or it can bring you down in a hurry.
Talking thousands of visits, probably.
Yeah. And at the same time, it worked well enough to afford me the ability to be able to buy. I bought and renovated and turned 4 different houses. And I did most of the work myself just because I knew how to mess it up and fix it on my own well enough, and I ended up with a pretty decent knowledge base that was very broad, which, like, to me, in my mind, that path was what gave me the knowledge base to be able to do this,
Mm.
because I had to figure out how to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So
So you flipped 4 homes
yeah,
up in the Portland area.
yep, yep. The biggest one was a 28-acre tree farm with a abandoned, foreclosed 70s split pitch cabin that was
Oh,
just full of spiders and mice. And I
oh,
redid the entire thing over a single winter. It was just spectacular.
and during winter.
Yes, during
Wow.
winter. Yeah.
But I imagine that was pretty fruitful,
Oh
given,
yeah.
you know, the market's been great over the years up there. That's awesome. So what eventually led to the aha moment to get into home inspections? I mean, I couldn't imagine running a restaurant and then being like, you know what, I'm gonna inspect homes.
I mean, that was what my brain did, but I just couldn't get out of the business to be able to do it. So when my ex-wife and I bought a second home, goodness, 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And at that point, the inspector that did it, he and I, like, I went in the crawl space. I was that annoying customer. I went in the crawl space with him and came out and was like, I could do this. Like, I could,
Yeah.
I could do this without a doubt, and spent the next 20 years building up a better knowledge base and weaning myself off of food service. And the transition was never going to be easy
Right.
because they're so different. But my brain is always the kind of brain that it will make those big transitions as safely as possible. So I weaned off of food while I was working on, like, I had my name done, I had my business name registered, I had my website developed, I had my logo, like I had done all of that fun footwork, because I think that's fun, before I sold my last food service business.
So
And
like
then
years in the making.
yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
definitely. And I was like talking to my realtor friends and like building up, I was fleshing it out before it even existed. And
Beautiful.
then fortunately, unfortunately, I got breast cancer 3 years ago. And the last surgery that I had was that time where I was going to be out for 6 weeks and I couldn't do anything. Like I could not move my arms. The best I could do was like alligator arms.
Oh,
And it was like, that's exactly what you need to be able to study for your home inspector test.
you forced into it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I couldn't do anything else, so I might as well do that. So I spent all those weeks going through that exam and took the test and passed it the first time. And then I hit the ground running, sold my last business, and then COVID happened.
Oh my gosh. So, well, first of all, I imagine recovery, you made it through, survived, right? So
Yeah.
congrats on that.
Yep.
So
Thank you.
and fingers crossed never comes back, right?
Fingers crossed. Science
Uh,
has gotten very good at these things.
yeah, thankfully.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy to hear that. When did you officially start the business or get in and say
Goodness, what was it going to be? I sold my last business January of 2020.
wow.
Oh, yeah. And I think I had my first inspection March of 2020. I
So,
think that's how that went.
so you sold the restaurant, closed, got the check and everything January 2020.
Yep.
Wow.
I couldn't have timed that better had I known what was coming.
Right. And you
Because
probably and
I would have literally given that business away for $5.
after knowing what you knew, right? After
And
March, April. Yeah.
yeah, like knowing that everything was going to shut down, it would have been an abandoned storefront.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
it's like, it's like selling, it's like selling anything. It's like you can't, it's a marketplace. You can't feel too bad for the buyer because
Yep.
they didn't know.
Yep.
No, none
But
of us.
I also, like, for the first year, I didn't accept a payment because I was carrying the contract. So I didn't I didn't take a single payment for the entire first year of COVID so that they could survive.
And do you know how that's turned out? Have they
They're doing
navigated?
okay now.
Oh,
There's
okay.
been they've pivoted, they've opened their doors again. They were really strict for a long time. Like, everyone in Portland, all the businesses did the really hard turn of
Right.
all to go. Like, you close the doors, you put a thing in the door, with a takeout window, and you're all takeout.
Yeah.
And the hustle just got 5 times harder, and it was a hard hustle to start with.
Wow. What was that like for you after all those years? Like, did you take a deep breath and like let the shoulders down of like, I'm no longer
I mean, I
doing
kind of had to. Excuse me, it's very rude. I kind of had to, because COVID happened, and real estate for what was it, 3 months, kind of went blank, and then
Right.
realtors pivoted hard and took off like a shot.
Yeah.
So it was quiet, but I was lucky in that my ex-wife had a salon for me to build during the first few months of COVID. So I was isolated and busy and building. And then I had a friend who had just bought a house, and she wanted me to attend to all of her home inspection checklist. So I worked on these 2 houses for the first 3 months, waiting for my first few inspections to come through. It's like the timing was amazing.
I was just about to say, you can answer that call, because it's a rule on an inspection podcast that you can always answer it if it's an inspection call. So we can always do that. We can always go for that, answer that. So you were networking with agents well before this. So what was the mentality like though, February, March, April, in terms of getting in front of those agents, letting them know you're open for business? Kind of walk us through that, because that's always fascinating. I think new inspectors always like hearing this.
I mean, I've never been a hard sale person. I don't like it coming at me, so I don't give it back. When a hard sale comes at me, I push back. And so it's just never been my person to push. I had a bunch of realtors that were regulars of my last business. So they would come through, and I would be like, for the year ahead of it, I'd be like, I'm looking at doing this thing. Talk to me about it. So by the time that transition happened, I had a couple of people that were waiting for me to get licensed.
Okay.
And I'm in a very, very helpful city to be a woman in trades.
Mhm.
There's this city really picks up and carries its women tradespeople. So as soon as I had, the first, the fun joke was my first 6 months, I was being hired exclusively by butch lesbian realtors. And it was,
right.
I laughed about it constantly. And then I found this one realtor, a friend of mine said, hey, I have a friend she's new to realty, but she's moving fast.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want her contact? And I was like, sure, absolutely.
Of course.
So called them, and I did one inspection for them, and it was for some dear friends, which is always a little bit nerve-wracking. Well, right. Especially when you're new, but it's a little different.
Like when it's their dear friend, you're saying, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Or, realtor's family. Like I have a couple of realtors who they don't use me for their clients, but they always call me for their family.
Wait, so you're good enough for their family, but not, that's like, that doesn't make sense.
Hold on a minute. But we did one inspection together, and they said, like, you're my new inspector. And since then I'm at 62 with them.
Wow.
In that much time. So it was a really fortuitous connection to have made. And then since then, it's just snowballed. They work in an agency that was very young and growing very fast. So I picked up a couple of other ones. And the only advertising that I've paid for is business cards.
That's amazing. First of all, congratulations. I'm always fascinated to have you self-reflect on what your kind of personal brand is, and like how you interact with people, for someone to want to introduce you to someone like that, because that doesn't just happen either, right? Sometimes. So like I guess my first question is always, what do those realtors say about their existing inspectors when you talk to them? Because there's always some commentary usually around like, oh, I got a guy, but
there was for a minute, for the first couple of months, no, for probably the first year and a half, quite frankly, especially through the election, there was a lot of inspectors, and there was a lot of realtors here that were like, my old inspector wouldn't wear a mask, or when he did wear a mask, he would show up in a Trump mask. And it put off a lot of people.
Would not jive. Yeah, that's not going to jive well.
I mean, in this market, you can't be, if you're going to be a good old boy driving in from out in the country, you got to be very aware of the market that you're playing in.
You're in Portland,
and a lot of them, a lot of them weren't. So they lost a lot of business there. And then there was a lot of pent up demand for a woman inspector, because a lot of the medium, even the big medium-sized firms really wanted to have that contact in their Rolodex because I mean, there's a lot of women buyers that don't want a dude to know the house they're about to buy better than they do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real thing, and they don't feel comfortable with that. So having a woman be able to roll through and to have that safety, it was invaluable to a lot of realtors.
And I imagine the like communication styles too matter because we've talked about this dynamic maybe once or twice on the pod, but like how, you know, a male inspector typically will speak to maybe like the male. If it's a male female couple, they'll address the male, and that's just always very demeaning and disrespectful to a degree. And so for anyone that even pays attention to that dynamic is ahead of the game because the bar was so low, right?
There's so many. There's a bunch of reviews in my Google reviews that speak to that exactly.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So treating, and it's just the assumption, you know, and it's you know, I fall in that category of like, my wife knows our home better than me. She's better at doing half the stuff in the house than me.
Yep.
So it's like
Yep.
you can't assume. I mean, you really can't.
I mean, you can, but there might be a consequence.
True, very true. Yeah.
You can assume all day long, but you're going to be wrong a lot of the time.
And you strike me also as having a calming kind of presence too. Have they ever mentioned that too? Because you're pointing out things that are wrong for a living.
Yes.
But you seem to have this kind of calm about you.
There's one of the practices that I picked up early, and I did it partly for myself and partly, I mean, it was kind of on accident. When I would go into a wrap up, I would always sit on the floor. And it was always adorable how often everyone, like, they would look at each other and then they would also sit on the floor, but it brought it down to this very calming place where, like, if you're otherwise, because most of us are otherwise going to stand, you know, with your wide stance, standing up with your arms, with your arms folded.
Tell me what's wrong. Tell me what it's going to cost me. Yeah.
Yes. Like I love that stance, but it doesn't read well. So I would either sit on the floor, sit on the mantle, somewhere, but it just brought everything a little bit down. Because I mean, it's a very nerve-wracking exchange for so many buyers. And then I put a lot of emphasis on my primer, on my like introductory speech, because there's a lot to attend to. There's a lot of assumptions, and I built it so that it had a lot of loose ends. So like, here's what it is that I'm doing. And it's, you know, we're making observations, you know, there's no pass fail. That one gets addressed with first time buyers because there's still that assumption.
People still Google that a lot, by the way. Like Google, I check search volume. If inspectors out there think they don't need to like address this basic, people still believe it's pass fail.
Yes. And you know, when I include that comment for first time buyers, my comment is, you know, there is no pass fail. If there were, every house would fail. Because there's going to be something in every house. Well, and I try, like, I really, if the mood fits it, one of the things that I think that women have a bit of a beat on is that we've gotten, out of survival instinct or necessity, really good at reading a room. So like we'll read the room, see how everyone's feeling, and tailor that introductory to the feel in the room. If I can get a laugh out of somebody, it's gold. Yeah. And it's not a laugh at, it's just a laugh at, like, this is an insane transaction that you're in the middle of. You're spending, like, and for 2 years, most people were spending $500,000 on a house that they had been in for 10 minutes. Right. That's insane.
You got to make a call on it. Yeah, based on that.
Yep. So you're relying on me to be your eyes way more than in markets before.
We say the word empathy almost on every episode now because it's just a theme and a concept our industry typically had not thought of or talked about a lot. But the fact, try to put this as you know nicely as possible. But the fact that you're talking about reading the room as opposed to the stubbornness that some folks in our industry will have of like, this is the way I do it, regardless of the human being that, you know, or beings that are across from you.
Yep.
Where did you come up with the sit down thing? Because to me, that's such an amazing, simple hack. Like it costs
Again, it was
nothing.
an accident. It was an absolute accident because my first few inspections, like it's nerve-wracking as hell. And that introductory speech is particularly nerve-wracking because I was never good at standing in front of a crowd and talking. So doing that even in front of a person, knowing that they're keyed up, they're like,
Yeah.
for me, sitting down made me feel calm.
Oh, okay.
And it just happened to make other people feel calm too.
So the first time you did it, were you like, please sit down, client? Please
No,
sit
I mean,
down
not
with me so you're not-
necessarily. I mean, I'm like, everyone says like, do you want to have a seat? And I'm like, no, actually, I've always been that kid that loved sitting on the floor. So I would just sit on the floor against a wall. And it's casual.
I love
Because
it.
if you can present this, because it can be a casual exchange of information, it's going to be bad news to some degree or another. If you can make bad news delivery casual and God forbid funny, like you're gonna end up with a repeat client.
And there's just something so approachable and like chill about sitting there cross-legged with each other, just discussing the home.
Yeah,
You're
we're just talking about the
home.
home.
I
Like,
just,
here's what I found. I'm gonna find something.
yeah.
Gonna do it.
I just love that tone, the vibe that it sets. So, okay, so that paints a great picture of kind of your brand and tone and everything, which obviously has jived really well with agents. So when things started picking up, at what point were you like, oh, this is working.
Fast.
This is gonna be a thing.
By the time I hooked up with you, because when I first started, I had cobbled together some semblance of report writing, scheduling, payment, and it was like 3 different systems that kind of work together but not great. And then I found you, and I was terrified to drop $1,000, but then I did it, and it just I don't know if it was the timing or the reports. I'm gonna guess it was a bit of both, but it just went like it went fast. And I could keep up with it. My schedule kind of allowed for it. Like, this business for my existence and our family's existence is ideal because we have 2 kids. My wife works at a hospital in the NICU. She's a nurse.
Okay.
And she was doing nights when she first started. And when I first started, she was in school. So the fact that I know, and then our kids were home because COVID. So the fact that I could be away from the house for 3.5 hours with travel time and then slot everything else in between the existence of our kids was invaluable. Like it was the only way that we were going to make a living.
Right.
At all. So, I mean, and I got it to a point where in their school day, when they finally went back to school, it was only 4 days a week, I could do, from the time I dropped them off to the time I picked them up, I could do 2 inspections on site, and then I would get them home, feed them, put them in front of a show to wind down for the day, write half a report, put them in bed, and then write the other report and a half after they fell asleep, half of which I was like on my laptop in the hallway while they were getting up out of bed. So it was just a burn. It was just a wild burn to be able to get this.
How long did you do that for? How long were you in that?
Long.
Too long. Well, first of all, I want to commend you and anyone that has a spouse that has worked night shifts, because my wife was a nurse in the ICU for 9 years. And so let's just say there's certain days where things are going to go south when someone hasn't gotten sleep, or
nights are so much harder than people realize. I don't
even know what that would be like to have your whole day and hormones and everything flipped. And so there were certain days where it's like, you know what, sweetie, you are right about everything.
Yep.
I'm gonna go do
it, buddy.
I'm gonna go do some dishes.
What do you need? And she's still working nights. Like, she's going on to days in September.
It's
It's
been a few years now, and my wife feels like it's been a few years to even regulate her body back to like, oh, I'm awake when the sun's up and I go to bed when the sun's down.
Oh yeah. It gets in your system. It's messed up. It's not a schedule that humans were meant to keep.
It's I got to the point of almost being angry at one point with like the shift work and the 12 hours of nurses. I'm like, how is this still a thing in this day?
No.
They're just wrecking their bodies.
Most of them love 12 hours though. They do. They love
That's
a 12.
true.
They love a 412.
Yeah. The give, they
Like,
understand the give up, I guess. It's like you're going to be wrecked for a day after,
yep,
and then you can make it up with a day
yep.
off.
I know nursing scheduling it's to me, it's just bananas.
Yeah. It's like the opposite of like a home inspector schedule. You're like,
oh yeah,
this is pretty damn good. This is
yeah,
a pretty good schedule.
yeah, I know. Yeah. So that's been our existence.
So
it works, but only barely.
Yeah. What point did it get to, okay, I have to say no to business. I think I'm going to expand and hire.
Probably 6 months after I hooked up with you, which was, goodness gracious, it's all so confusing time now. I knew that I had to start looking for someone probably a year and a half ago.
Year and a half
And
ago. Okay.
I had, I've in the course of my career in food, I had trained a babillion people in like 5-minute training shifts and then threw them onto a counter shift. Like it was terrible because like, it's a $5 exchange.
Right.
At worst. Like the heat is off when you're training someone in food because most of the time they've been in food, so they know how to do it.
Right.
And you can just throw them in and they'll either sink or swim. But this, because it's, every exchange is $500 or more, the training level was so much more intense than I'd ever known. So right. Marissa did ride-alongs with me for 6 months. And we incrementally.
How'd you find her, first of all?
Friends of friends. This is a city that it is more about who you know than anything else.
Really?
And it's a very small, it's the biggest small town you're ever going to live in.
It's a good way to put it.
Here's a good one. I did an inspection on this ginormous 6,000 square foot house with a geothermal system, 2 HVAC systems, 5 sub panels. It was bonkers in this very fancy neighborhood. And I was telling a buddy of mine who's a contractor about it. He's like, wait, was it white, colonial, with a garage and an ADU on top? And I was like, yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I worked on that house. So he had done all
really?
of the updates that we had just inspected. And we like that happens constantly. The circles in this city run very tight.
Did you tell him that nothing came up on the report? His work was flawless? Or did you?
Well, actually, I knew I know his work level. And so I actually breathed the sigh of relief into me when I realized it was him, because I didn't do that inspection. Marissa did.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I found her through a friend of a friend. We talked for a minute over text and then we met and we had to make sure that our personalities jive. And she's kind of she's like a mini me, but with, instead of food service experience, she was a nanny. Nice. And that's what afforded her own. And then she opened her own handy person business.
Okay. And
she'd been doing that for a few years. So the difference between us primarily is that her approach in that introductory spiel is a little bit more, it's a little softer and it's a little funner because she's doing it from like, hey kids, like, let's go to the dentist. Like it's a delivery of bad news. Almost like you can tell ever so slightly that she'd been talking to children more than she'd been talking to adults giving bad news. And now at this point, our realtors know, like, hey, I've got a squirrely client. I'm going to go with Marissa now because she's a little softer in her delivery and you're a little more direct.
Okay. And first time, I imagine that works well with first time home buyers too. Younger first timers, or no?
Depends on the personalities.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Some of them still want direct. I usually get a lot of the like scientists and mathematicians because they're like, boop. And she gets the ones that are a little more emotional and need a little more hand holding.
I love that, because every time I hear that agents think this deeply about it, I'm always impressed and I always appreciate it, because I know there's some agents that don't think this deeply about maybe their client's profile and how they could best be served. Some agents are just like, just get the inspection done and have nothing.
Go.
Yeah, get the inspection done, 0 defects, cool.
That seems risky.
But I love that they care in that way and know your business in that way to where they can kind of tailor it. So the training you said lasted like 6 months.
Yep. And we slowly incrementally moved her up to where, at first she was checking windows and receptacles. Mm-hmm. And by the end of it, I was shadowing her. And then I was, for another 4 months, I read every one of her reports before she published them. And we went through it. Like I had her on speakerphone. We would go through everything piece by piece and make sure that she hit all those points and hit all her limitations. So that those reports ended up as close to mine as they can. Like, I don't want her to be me, but I want the reports to be of similar quality and caliber.
How difficult was it to do your job and to train and to think about how to still grow the business?
I mean, it wasn't fun, but it worked.
Did you just take the approach like this is what needs to be done if we're going to?
Yes, this is what needs. Absolutely. And the benefit was that I could dial back to, I mean, I didn't do any more 2-a-days. I would do 1 2-a-day a week.
Nice.
And then, and still be making almost as much because she'd be bringing in income on her own. Yeah. So, and like, I wanted to have a better work-life balance, but I also love working. I love working.
What do you love about it? Tell me, tell us more.
I like making money. Let's be truthful. I've never seen this kind of profit margin in my life, because if you think about food,
where you came from, yeah,
like of all the dollars that I get now, I have like 90 cents of them. And before, I would get $1, 40% would go to food, 30% would go to staffing, 20% would go to rent. Like, there's nothing left. So for me, this was just insane. So part of my drive has just been watching what comes in and just marveling at it, like inspection numbers, revenue. It's just like, it boggles my mind still.
After that many years, you're probably looking around like, I get to keep most of this?
Yeah, like what? My CPA also wonders, like, where's all your write-offs, honey?
Right. That's hilarious. I guess I never thought about that flip from the restaurant industry. That's insane.
Just bananas. And I also like seeing progress. I love progress. I like watching things grow. I like building things because you can see something, happen from nothing. I like progress. Like, progress is what drives me as a person. And I know that, like, historically, I haven't been balanced in my work life, but I love working, and it feeds me in a way that not working doesn't necessarily calm me. So, I mean, I'll do, I'll balance it out somewhere, but not yet.
This does seem like an industry where you can have it all. I've seen it. I've seen companies where I'm like, wow, you seem like you struck the balance. Like, you're making good money. Yep. You're not killing yourself.
And you're giving, I'm giving a few people a really good living, which to me is also very important, because if you're living high off of someone else's poorly paid labor, it wouldn't feel right for me. And yeah. I've never been able to pay people this much because I have the margin for it now.
Yeah.
So it's gratifying in a couple of ways.
I love it. And you're doing it in the right way, and you're supporting an underrepresented piece of the industry. I think of Jen at Doyen Inspections in Austin when I think of someone that has conviction and kind of like this needs to change, like the underrepresentation of literally anyone besides a 50-plus-year-old white male in our industry.
Yep.
So just getting that opportunity in the example it sets, very cool. So can you speak a little, just what that means to you, and how intentional you are around that?
I mean, it's the existence I've lived. I mean, I cannot tell you the number of times that I have walked into a Home Depot. Like, it's a tagline that I'm kind of been kicking around, but I don't think I'll ever pull the trigger on it. Something to the effect of, why pay $500 to be mansplained to when you can go to Home Depot for free?
It's a pretty damn good tagline, by the way.
It is, I know. But I've watched women not get noticed in this business as clients, and it's just so tiring because it doesn't need to be this way. Like, there's really, especially in this field, there's no barrier to entry on, like, you don't have to be super strong. You got to be able to carry a ladder. We were really good communicators, typically. I'm going to say, this is typical, but not consistent, not surefire.
Yep.
Attention to detail, like, it's the thing that we're really good at because we've had to pay attention. Like, any woman who has walked across a dark parking lot knows that we pay attention
You're aware,
to
hyper
small
aware.
indicators, to big problems.
Right.
So to me, this is a business where we're kind of tailor made for it. And yet we are, goodness, what is it now? 20%? Or we went 18% of the market, I think. Something like that. And so it just, I mean, it just, there's no reason for it to not be different. And anything that I can do to move that needle, I'm going to do. With Nina Davidson, I've got, you know, every single inspection that I do, $5 of it goes to a fund to be able to give someone a paid for scholarship to her course.
Beautiful.
Because she is doing something even bigger, and that she's bringing in people that have no or minimal trade background. So like starting from scratch, and anywhere in the country, because you know her course is online.
Right.
So to me, like that's just gold in the realm of bringing, you know, that equilibrium to something a little more equal.
Yeah, because it's approachable, like you said, low barriers to entry in most states, no license, or in half the states, no licensing, basically. So you're talking quick ramp time for anyone of all backgrounds to get into it. Is it 18%? I didn't know it was that high. Where is
That's why I'm saying maybe. Like I haven't looked at stats lately, but I mean, I've got it somewhere. I included in every one of my report writing emails, and I've got those stats in there somewhere, but I think they're probably a year old. Yeah, it's not high. It's probably not 18, and it might be 10 by now.
Yeah, I was like,
when I look
thought
at
it was single
last, I think
digit.
it was 9.
Hey, hey, well, we're bringing it up. We're knocking them out on the pod. You know, I think we've had 5, 6, 7, just amazing women on the pod. So I'm definitely all about it. Any, like you mentioned, like the relationship with agents and just like the dynamic, right? And so what's interesting to me is like realtors aren't realtors like 60 or 70% female
women.
Yeah. And so can you talk a little bit about that just interesting dynamic, and it's like flip-flopped almost? And so I've just always found that fascinating, because I was a realtor for 5 years in Denver, and I kind of observed that as well, and I didn't know what to make of it at the time because I wasn't, you know, in this industry, in the home inspection industry. But yeah, what do you make of that? And then how do you use it to your advantage too? I like talking about how to use things to your advantage.
Oh, absolutely. But interestingly enough, it's not necessarily an advantage when you're talking about a 60-70% women base, because the few of the patterns that I've noticed is that I have a much easier time with newer realtors. Older established realtors, especially, and no, I won't say especially, but older established realtors, they're used to a thing. They're used to inspectors being a certain thing. And it's just the muscle memory of it, moving out of that comfort zone, like to them, it's too much. Where like I'm a new report writing software, I'm a new kind of inspector, it's just too much.
Right.
And a lot of very established realtors, I'll do 3, maybe 4 inspections with them, and then I won't hear from them again. And that's fine. Newer inspectors or newer realtors, there's a lot more allowance to create, like to become accustomed to what new is, just because they're primarily millennials. They understand digital world. They, so many of my more established realtors, they're gonna call me, even though you can book online so much easier. They're still gonna call me. They're just like
the good old phone
I'm in a
call.
crawl space. I'm on a roof.
The good old phone call.
Nobody wants to do the calling, but they're still gonna do it. I think a lot of it is just the comfort zone that they're in.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that a lot of these older, more established women realtors they've kind of grown comfortable with men coming in and explaining things out. Like there's a degree of comfort that you get in having that handled by a dude that a lot of them just don't want to shed.
That's so well said. I think there could be a generational piece to this. Kind of this is how I grew up. The man came in and explained the thing about the home.
And it makes them feel comfortable. And if that's the way that's great, have at it.
Going to be hard to shed. Like the beauty of the new school is that with technology and social media, it's like they are coming in and beating doors down. Like I've seen so many rainmakers come in a year or two doing crazy volume.
using all the tools that they have at their disposal.
Yeah. Yeah. Creating content, like,
I mean, yeah, especially with COVID happening and everything having to go online.
right.
Like there was a big learning curve for a lot of older established realtors that were still trying to put like cell phone photos on listing. It's not going to
Yeah.
work anymore,
Yeah.
kids. And so like this adoption of technology happened in a big flurry, really in a big way.
Yeah.
And I think it bent that market in a direction that it had been resistant to bend for a long time.
And I would say this even if I was a baby boomer, but I was okay with that balance of power, money, transactions getting smoothed out just a little, because I'm like, realtors have had it good for a long time. Like the old guard, they've been crushing it for like 20 years, just like
Yep.
sometimes doing very little work on transactions. So it's like, I can see
Yes.
that because I was a realtor.
Yes. Like the big established teams. Yeah, definitely.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's some legacy in this business that can ride off into the sunset because it's like you've had your day in the sun.
Yep. Let's let somebody come up and I'm frankly kind of remake the industry, because it did get remade.
Yeah.
It did. It was fascinating to watch how quickly that pivot happened, and Matterports got sent out and everyone was like, it was go time.
Yeah.
Like
We're still in the
film
first
crews.
we're early in this sea change, I think, too. And it's probably no different in the home inspection industry. There is a certain 20, 30-year vet old guard that probably didn't react too well to the COVID changing and going digital and creating newsletters and content. And they're probably losing a little bit of business. And some of them might be okay with it because some of them I think are retiring soon.
I mean, yeah, there's pushes of that. I'm seeing that happening in this business too.
Really? Are you seeing it in your area? So what's ahead for you? What are you envisioning, if you are at all, for the next couple years, 5-10 years?
I'm gonna hire somebody else, but the timing on this is tricky because I've got a few people, like I've gotten a few emails of people that were interested in jumping on.
Mm-hmm.
But we sat down a few times and talked, but the truth is like I don't know what interest rates are going to do, because it happened fast where people are still buying houses, but the stress loads have shifted. There's still a stress load. It's not outbidding stress load.
Mm-hmm.
It's that client stress load of, I'm doing this in time where I feel kind of reticent to do it because I'm still a little bit like, I'm still pissed off as sellers. Sellers are pissed off they're not going to make that money. And then buyers are pissed off that they're going to have to spend that much more on interest. So the stress burden has just moved. It's changed shape, but people are still buying homes. The exception being the lower price point market, it just got decimated. Like anything in this city, anyone trying to buy under $400,000 is like
priced out.
That interest rate hike it took them out. And there has been a bit of a correction price wise, but that's for fixers. Anything in the city that's dialed or in a good neighborhood is still getting bids. It's still getting, bidding.
Still holding steady.
Yeah. I mean, not 100. I mean, for a good while, the expectation for buyers was that whatever the price was, expect 100,000 over. And that's painful.
That feels like fantasy land at this point, but it was real in a place like Denver. Denver wasn't too dissimilar from Portland, where that was the norm and people were just coming over the top like they had unlimited money.
Yep. Yeah, I grew up in Park City above Salt Lake City, and Salt Lake City did the same thing. Just astronomical growth. So
it's this weird like tale of two different worlds almost, where it's like the people that can buy, and tell me if this is accurate with what you're seeing, the people that can buy are flush with cash and they can do it. The people that can't, they're done. They gotta wait this out until price decreases make up for that offset in interest.
Yep. And that I think that will happen.
Yeah,
I do. But there's going to be and especially lower end buyers, they're threading a needle between increased rates and decreased prices. And like the timing is going to be so important for them. So, I mean, I think we're probably going to see a bit of a cooling and a bit of a lot of realtors jumped on during COVID when they left their old businesses. And I think there's going to be a thinning of the herd there, and there's probably going to be a thinning of the herd here, but I don't think it's going to be massive, but I think it be. So for me, like investing in a new person, it didn't feel fair to bring someone on and then potentially not have what I wanted to be able to offer them. So I'm going to sit for a while, get through this year, if someone comes along that's just a knockout, then I'll probably invest in them and slough some of my own business so that I can bring them in and they can have a few of mine. But I'm not planning on big growth for the rest of the year. I don't want to, and I don't see it being there.
Smart, so realistic, I believe, with the kind of writing that's on the wall. Do you think pre-listing inspections will become a thing now, finally, after a 10-year bull market, or is it just never going to be a thing?
I think the time for pre-listing inspections was when everything was bananas, because it greased the wheels for those fast closures on a high bidding war.
Oh, okay.
There was there was a minute where people were doing, like, we did a quite a few walk and talks, you know, the consults.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the methods. But the markets that were just ahead of us, San Francisco and the such, were going to pre-listing inspections, so that was just done, so that, like, it could just go. There was no other hurdles to be had if that pre-inspection was done. And this city's never been a big pre-listing city. Seattle does a lot more pre-listings for whatever reason, but we just never, it's never been a
part
thing
of the
that really
culture.
happens here.
Interesting. I'm so fascinated by the regional aspect of that, where some East Coast, Midwest cities, it's like people trust pre-listing inspections and sellers love them.
Yeah, I don't know why those happen, but yeah, they're regional. And I'm not a good pre-listing inspector. I'm just not, because we're really detail oriented and we're really thorough, and we're going to point out missing door stops, and that's not what a pre-listing inspection is meant for.
Fair enough. So when you think of the thinning of the herd with agents, is there anything you're focusing on to almost prepare for that, or in anticipation of that? Is it just keeping the good connections you have, or is it just keep doing a good job and good things will happen?
Staying as nimble as I can. Like, that's why I don't want to bloat and bring on another person, because it's a bigger ship to correct. So I'm going to stay as nimble as I can, and just be consistent. Like, being consistent when other things are shifting, to me, it's a valuable thing for people that are looking for something consistent. And agents, when their world is shifting, they want consistency. I mean, for the same reason that I mentioned with the older guard realtors, like, they want consistency. And so if I've delivered them something that they're used to, I'm going to just keep holding on to it.
Yeah. Keep delivering, keep communication high. I know.
And then at some point I might have to spend some dollars on advertising. I might have to finally bite the bullet and put some advertising money in the coffer.
Yeah, that's good to plan for. I think that's a very important point. I think a lot of folks just accept a down market instead of saying, can I grab a little bit more share in a down market and have a relative win? I like that mindset a lot better, rather than saying, oh, we're all just going to get hammered here.
Yeah. I mean, given that I've started with, I just haven't spent advertising money. For me, like, putting some towards that, I'm due, quite frankly. Yeah. I've been lucky that I haven't had to. So having to do it, I mean, I just need to buck up and put my big girl pants on and do it.
Yeah. View it as icing on the cake. That's how I see it, where I'm like, if you've never had to do it, great problem to have. Good on you for doing it the organic way.
Yep.
I lost the original calendar invite of the things you put on there. What else did you have on there that you wanted to cover? Because I was searching for it, because we rescheduled, and then I was just like, oh crap, there's probably some really good stuff to get into on there.
Wanted to nerd out about that damn electric truck, because that damn electric truck is just so exciting. The Ford F-150 Lightning, which to me is like the ideal home inspector truck.
Oh.
If it works so big, like when they bring out a mid-size, like if there was an electric Ranger or a hybrid electric Ranger, all over it.
Game over for home inspections.
Oh, so good. So good. Like, there's plugs. I could keep my entire charging portal in the front of this truck and charge everything continuously and not have to bring it into the house and back and forth. There's a desk in the middle of the seats. Like, it's perfect.
I am going to get a sponsorship for the podcast. I'm going to see if they can pay me $100 a week, because you said that really well. That was an amazing pitch, and it looks good. I don't know. It looks pretty slick.
It's big. It's a big truck. I'm not used to a full-size truck. I'm used to a Toyota Tacoma. Like, parking and right now I'm working out of a Chevy Volt. Like, everything fits in the back of my sedan. So moving to a truck is going to be a dream.
You must have those good collapsible ladders, huh?
I do. I've got a few extended climbs. Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, this thing looks Pretty cool.
Isn't it
This
dope?
is my first time seeing it. Like, this is insane.
Oh
It's
God,
not
it's still, and the entry level Pro is $40,000.
approachable. It's affordable.
Very for an electric vehicle. It's actually it's one of it's one of the cheaper electric vehicles on the market at that rate.
Good for Ford, especially if they can, figure out like battery life and kind of do it, copy whatever Tesla's doing to get right on their side.
They are thinking of going to a direct to dealer market for electric vehicles. So there's not going to be for electric vehicles, not going to be any more
Dealer model.
because the dealership model has been hellacious with electric vehicles. New, like all these new cars coming out, it's just been a nightmare. And then Tesla went and rewrote the entire book, and everyone else loves it. And same with Rivian. Like Rivian rewrote, they continued on with that direct to consumer. So Ford's thinking of doing that, and it would be very exciting.
I mean, everyone wins with that kind of model, I imagine.
Except the dealerships.
That's true.
There's going to be plenty of pushback. I mean, they'll keep the ICE vehicles, but they're probably going to go electric. All the electric ones, because the technology is very different. The repair shops service, it's all going to be different. Like trying to incorporate these two kinds of cars, it's not super smooth for dealerships either. The technology base is different, the knowledge base is different. For the most part, the consumer base is different. So making them different, the writing's on the wall for it.
Wow, that'd be a badass differentiator to pull up in one of those.
Yeah, I know.
What else is interesting to you nowadays? What else is on your mind? What else? It could be about anything, really.
I mean, at this point, I think we've covered it. We've talked about the market, talked about interest rates, hiring, women in trades. We've covered most of it.
I got some good, fun, standard questions to ask you.
Oh, go. Fire away.
Besides a potential F-150 Lightning, what would be your favorite tool or toy in the home inspector space? What do you nerd out to?
People love when I use the drone. They just think it's the bee's knees. Kids, like if there's ever a kid that's on site, they lose their minds. I've chased client children like in the yard with the drone.
When did you get a drone? When did you decide, like, you know what?
I think it was Black Friday 2 years ago.
Okay.
I prefer being on a roof. I love inspecting a roof. I love getting boots on a roof. I'll double ladder a roof. It's never a good idea, but I do it all the time. And then, there was a couple of minutes where, I'm teetering on a ladder in 3 stories up, and I'm like, this is dumb. Like, this is not smart. Yeah. If I fall, I'm not young anymore. I'm not gonna bounce like I used to. My family relies on I can't keep being stupid.
Yeah.
So I got a drone to be able to not be stupid anymore.
Well, you got cooler, you lose that.
I got notably cooler. Yep. Cool points went up through the roof. Between those and Flir, like those thermal imagers, they're so much fun. And the parlor trick of like, hey, how does it work? And you put your hand on the wall and you show them the hand point. Yeah. Or my other favorite is wherever the realtor's been sitting, you show them where they were sitting.
Yep, nice and warm. Those probably never fail. Like the average person, if we only see that once every 7 to 10 years, every time it's gonna be like, oh, that's badass. Like
that's amazing. No, those things are great. They're finding the number of leaks I've found in ceilings that I wasn't going to find otherwise.
Amazing.
I know, they're just wonderful. And C5, like I don't need the gun kind. They're $500. I've got a few of them. They're so approachable. Flir will repair them.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
What's the model you use?
C5, a little handheld one. Looks like a cell phone. Everybody thinks it's a cell phone. Yeah.
Cool.
I started with the little dongle on the bottom of my phone, but it kept breaking. So I went up to a C5. And it's all I've ever needed. I like carrying a good amount of stuff on my belt. Like I have a bigger belt than most people are going to have. Mm-hmm. I don't like going up and down the stairs to get to things that I needed. So I keep as much on that thing as possible. And so it's customized to my needs. Like, I don't even have to, I don't have to look to grab anything. I actually did a really, I took my kids to the coast a couple of months ago. And while they were asleep, I wanted to write down all of the gear that I had where I got it, how much it costs, so that new inspectors, I could have this kit of like, here's what you need to go get, here's where you can get it.
Yeah.
Here's what, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, because you do buy you buy your gear in phases. And so without looking, because I was away from all my stuff, I went through my entire my belt, my my toolbox that's in my car, and all of my backups, and just wrote it all down from memory. And it was a fascinating exercise in memory.
Love how nerdy this is. The home inspection nerdiness of this level. So did you put this on your website? Can we promote
No,
this?
I just have it in a notebook. I have it like, at this point, I've put together a notebook of like, here's how you get licensed, here's the steps, here's where you go for school, here's how much it costs, here's the cost of your first push of tools, here's the cost of your second push of tools. Like, because as we're doing training, all they need is 10 things to begin with when they're just checking windows and plugs. And then as they get better and better, and I'm paying them, they can reinvest that money and be able to buy their next few levels of tools. So I wanted to make essentially like a how to get into this business notebook. And a lot of people have looked at it.
Very cool.
It can be, it's a complicated process when you start it, but it's not a lot for what you end up getting.
Well, how about if you don't put it on your own site, you give me the list, I'll link to your site from our blog post, get you some SEO juice. If you want to share it broadly. If not, if it's trade secrets, we don't have to.
No, none of it's trade secret.
But no, but
for the most part, we all use the same stuff.
Exactly. I agree with you though, that so many new inspectors are just like, oh, I don't know what ladder to get. I don't know what kind of moisture meter to get. Like, I just want to know what the experienced industry people are using. So I think
I've gone through a lot of junk. There's some things you can do that, you can get some tools that are junk, but it's like going to Harbor Freight for a few things. You're gonna get garbage.
You know what you're getting. You should know what you're
signing up. If it's a one-off, always get your tarps at Harbor Freight.
Yeah, grew up going to Harbor Freight with my dad. I'm no stranger. I'm no stranger to the bucks he was saving. So speaking of something you shouldn't do, what's something you've learned over the years that home inspectors should never do?
Never do. Tell someone how much is left on the roof.
Good one. I haven't heard that one before.
So much of it ends up being liability based.
Yeah.
So much of this is like having your liabilities in mind. Never do is tough. Never do is really tough. Like, move furniture. Never move furniture. There's always that nightmare story of someone moved furniture and then they didn't move all the furniture and now they're screwed because they lost a court case. Show up late. It's always a bummer. Not have your tools charged. That's always a bummer. Having backups of your vital stuff. I always have backups of all my vital.
Big. That's a good one. That's a great one.
It's all going to be small stuff. Poor communication. It's small stuff, but it weighs heavily.
Yeah, the details matter a ton.
Yeah, they do.
On the flip side, what advice would you give? And this can be for just any new home inspectors. Say we're talking women getting in the business. What advice would you have? You can do either.
Get in it. Primarily, this is a realtor. Hang on 1 second.
Take that.
What's up, Bromberg?
How we going?
It's super duper. I got a quick minute and then I got to call you back. Anything that's super vital?
No, but I thought you and I want to explain at some point. I think that finish the conversation, but I just might have to stop.
Oh, are we talking cancer stuff? Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Let me call you. Can I call you tonight when I've got this report done?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I may or may not be around, but we can phone tag and go together. Just, we're not, we don't have a
if anything, I can tell you what you should get for recovery because there is a few things you should have for recovery. Yep.
Yes, that's totally the conversation. And also,
Nope. No, I am that person. So Glenn and I are we're gonna be tag teaming this one. Okay. I will. I'll check in with you tonight when our kids are in bed and we'll see if it works. Same. All right. Bye, babe. Also, I have very bad boundaries with my realtors.
Let's talk about this for a second. I love this. So we're like 90 something episodes in and no one's ever taken a live call on the pod. So I'm not editing that out because I think this is cool because it shows you the relationship, you know, that you have with some of your agents. It's not like this transactional thing like that. Sounded like it was about something else and is all
No,
good. Like it just
one
like
of the
you're talking to
first
a friend.
questions that I ask every realtor when, if especially if they hang out, is like, hey, what's new in your life? Like the first 5 minutes I allocate to like to look at that realtor and say like, hey, you're a person. Tell me what's happening. Because
Yeah.
you know shit is happening in their life. And it is amazing. So one of the one of the things that I used to love, and I don't know where this comes from, but it's a thing that it's to my memory, it's always been the case. If you looked in my high school yearbook, which I burned and I wish I hadn't, you know, the front and the back pages where everyone writes shit, excuse me, everyone writes things.
Yeah.
It was just a solid wall of thanks for listening, thanks for listening, thanks for being there, thanks for listening.
Ooh.
When I was working the counter, my last retail business, one of my, it wasn't a goal, but it was just kind of the way that it worked. At least once a week, someone would cry at the counter.
Wow.
Like someone would just have a moment at the counter and it just happened. So I think for whatever reason, I have a demeanor. It's helped by having bad boundaries, I'm sure. But people tell me things that they don't tell other people. And I've used that as well as I can, and I use it in every transaction that I can. Now, like, you're talking to a person. They're having a day. You don't know what that day is. It might be wise to acknowledge it.
You seem like one of the best active listeners I've come across. And I think that shows just even by your statement there. Which is a superpower, I believe, in this day and age.
It can be tiring.
I think if you don't whip out your phone and get on social media while someone's directly speaking to you, you're like already in the top 50 percentile. Like if you'll just blatantly disrespect someone when you're talking to them, you're ahead of the game.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
You mentioned boundaries, and we can touch on this real quick. And then we gotta bounce because I know you got important things to do. Some people will hardcore say you got to establish boundaries or else they're going to run all over you. Like no one ever talks about the flip side of like you might build amazing relationships too.
So then you're right. There was a time, I think I was in my 20s, end of my 20s, where I had to run that math of, do I want to continue to be this person and potentially look like an idiot a lot of the time? Because there is a high risk of overextending, looking like a chump, looking like a dummy, like whatever you want to call it, being naive. And I vacillated back and forth on it. And in the end, like for me, the expense is well worth the payout. And there is a payout, like there is a benefit to it. There's a cost, of course, because all things come with a cost and a benefit. But for me, what I get from other people getting, like I get both as a benefit to my person, hearing all these stories, having those moments, like for me, it's so worth the potential cost of looking like an idiot or making someone uncomfortable or, every now and again getting it wrong than to change it. And it's a thing that I don't know, I think it's similar to resilience in that I don't know if you either have it or don't. I don't know if you can learn it. I know you can shut it off, but to me, they're kind of parallel personality traits. And I mean, I've benefited far more than I've lost from it. And some people might argue that, but I don't care. They can argue that all they want. I get to run that cost benefit analysis in my own brain, and I know which way it ends up for me.
Day to day what makes a difference and what doesn't. You seemed in tune to these things too, to know that like, you know what, I've connected with this person sometimes because I didn't have boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And the people that are boundaried, I can tell quickly, and I know to just we talk about work, and that's it. I mean, again, you read the damn room.
Read the room.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that came from being in the service industry. And actually, what's the woman who owns Doyen? What's her name again?
Jen.
Yep. We've spoken a few times. And one of the things that we came to consensus about is that this is a business that the best combination and experience base something about having spent time in team sports,
Mhm.
having had a good amount of retail work to be able to read the room and to balance things and be able to like to juggle a lot of things at the same time. And I mean, those two things they're kind of critical. And then of course having the knowledge base, but that knowledge base can be grown. Those other soft skills, they're much harder to come across.
That's what I love about this industry, and you even vocalizing these things, because it sets an example that everyone just there can be some people I think that think you have to be a builder to make it. It's like it's almost the opposite is true nowadays. It's like you better be a communicator, you better know how to read people.
Yep.
You can learn the building stuff.
I mean, yeah, that's the truth. Like you can learn that stuff, but I mean, yeah, the soft skills, they're so much harder to come by.
They're valuable. They're
they're
a treasure when you find someone with them. Yeah, hold
gold.
them tight.
Gold.
Don't let them go. All right. Final question. Wish list item for Spectora.
Oh, how dare you?
How dare
I was just going through this one thinking, damn it, why won't you figure out how to co-click? Like if I click one thing, if I click a house age, that a series of other things get clicked automatically. That would, oh man, that'd be good.
Ooh, I'm gonna write this down. Contingent clicking, I'm gonna call it.
Yes, because like so many things, like if I work on a house that was 1930s or older, that lath and plaster is going to get checked, that wiring, pre-87 wiring is going to get checked, that pre-30s foundation is going to get checked. There's so many things that happened in the 30s that there is kind of a hard line between those two ages of house, and there's a high likelihood that those other things are going to be in play also.
Ooh, that's a juicy one. That's so good, because it's like if then statements. I just think of it in code of like if then statements.
Yes.
Like
yes,
applied to your reports. That could save time.
so much time.
For sure.
So much time. Like if I click LEDs one place, that it's going to click it everywhere else.
Okay.
There's so many places where that would just be glorious.
I'm officially hyped about that one. That's so good. Okay.
I think that was my biggest. Yeah.
That's a great one. If you send me more, email me the others that you have, because I have a feeling yours are very well thought through and like efficiency minded, as opposed to
definitely efficiency minded.
Opposed to like Kevin, I want my margins to be one more pixel on PDF. And it's like, what? Okay. I think that'll help your business.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
How about
That's
soft
cute.
skills? How about
That's cute.
Well, thank you. This has been amazing. It felt like it's flown by. It's been an hour and 10 minutes, but
it's been an hour and 10 minutes.
Been an hour and 10 minutes.
5.
We could totally do this again. Thank you for spending time and chatting. Some amazing stories. I wish you the best of success coming in the back half of this year. I'll be keeping tabs on you. Let's check in again kind of towards year end, and
contact Nita. Her story's good. The things she's doing are good.
Will do. Get her some airtime.
Where and she has her own podcast. She might be able to co-pod.
Ooh, I'm always down for that. Sometimes I like being a guest sometimes, because I always host, and so sometimes
yeah, you can flip the script.
Where can people find you if they have questions, they want to learn more, they want to just network? Where's the best place?
Website trueinspectionspdx.com. Email Amanda at trueinspectionspdx.com.
Amazing.
Those are the easies.
I will.
And if you're a texter, because we are all texters, 503-369-8498.
That's beautiful. I give people props when they just lay it out on the episode, and they're just like, text me now.
Yep. Yeah. Again, bad boundaries.
It's going to lead to some good connections. I promise you, the right energy will find you. So I'm all about that.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Have a good rest of your day.
And thanks, buddy. Thanks for letting me do it.
Get that tool list on your website. Yep. People will go to that.
Okay. All right, I'll do that.
All right.
I'll get there. All right. Thanks, bud.
Awesome. See you.
Bye.